Hello, and welcome to another video for the Criminology class. In this video, we're going to talk about Emil Durkheim. Now, Emil Durkheim was a sociologist, and his theory of crime is the first true sociological theory of crime. And by that, I mean he looked at crime as somehow being influenced by society. So the sociological theory of crime. Now, before we really start with Emil Durkheim, I think it's important to make a comment about being progressive, making progress in this idea of political progressivism. What's interesting is that in our last video, where we talked about the dangers of the early biological theories, we made the point that those individuals truly believed that the atrocities they were committing were moral or ethical in the sense that it was helping humanity move forward. It was self-directed evolution. They believed they were making progress with the human race. So they intentionally tried to progress and make things better. That's a danger of progressivism. Progressivism tends to think more of the larger society, and in doing so, they forget the rights of the individuals. Well, Emil Durkheim was not necessarily looking at intentionally progressing humankind, but he believed that crime had something to do with the progress of humankind. So we're going to get into this. So first, it's important to understand that Durkheim looked at three revolutions. Now, I know there are four on this slide, but Durkheim looked at three different revolutions: the American Revolution, the French Revolution, but he was really heavily influenced by the Industrial Revolution. In Durkheim's mind, these three revolutions, especially the Industrial Revolution, caused a very quick change in the way society operated. So the move from an agrarian or farming society into an industrial society that was happening very quickly in the history of man influenced crime, according to Durkheim. Now, I've got a fourth one here, the technological revolution, because the technological revolution is changing our society even more quickly than the Industrial Revolution did. We are still in the technological revolution. And some might believe that it is simply a second phase of the Industrial Revolution itself. But the Industrial Revolution was spawned by using factories to make products. The technological revolution may not necessarily be products, and by that I mean things we can physically hold in our hands, so much as it is a way of doing things digitally with technology, rather than simply moving from working our own farms to provide for our families to working in a factory to make money to go buy groceries for our families. That kind of change is not happening between the industrial and the technological revolutions. What's happening, though, is that more and more people are going into the technological fields rather than the manufacturing fields. But these revolutions and the rapid changes in society that occurs because of them relate to crime. So Emil Durkheim was a sociological functionalist. Now, this is a photograph of Durkheim himself, but he was a sociological functionalist. Now, what that means is that he believed that everything within a sociological system served a function within that system. Now, modern sociologists tend not to be functionalists, and they're not too happy with Durkheim's functionalism. But I think it's important that we be fair to the functionalists. The functionalists, some of them do believe crime is necessary to a society. It serves a function and it serves a necessary function, so we can't get rid of it. Just like sexism or racism, they served a function in society and we can't get rid of them because we need them for the society to function. Well, that's not really an accurate way of saying things. Now, keep in mind that there are those who believe that if a culture has its own rules, that those rules are just neutral and we should accept them. There are others who believe that a society can be dysfunctional in its functioning, meaning that even though it's functioning to preserve itself, what it's doing is harming its members, and harming its members means that it will eventually self-destruct. So sociological functionalism, in a more broad sense or in a fairer sense, simply recognizes that even symptoms of a bad society serve a function within that society. And if we can intervene so that bad thing, such as crime, that's happening in the society that's serving this function, if we can find healthier ways to serve that function, then we will no longer need crime. So that's a good way of thinking of sociological functionalism. So there are two different types of solidarity or societies that Durkheim enunciated. The first is the mechanical solidarity. Now, mechanical solidarity was part of the agrarian society, as you'll see here on the bottom of this list. So it is part of the agrarian society. And in an agrarian society, there is a strong homogeneity, meaning that this group, even though they might be fairly independent from one another, they're very much alike. Independent, but similar. Traditional societies tend to be mechanical societies. But what's also interesting is that there is a minimum division of labor in these mechanical societies. Now, my great-great-great grandfather and great-great-grandfather would have been part of an agrarian society in the U.S. that would have influenced, the society would have influenced the ideas of Durkheim. Now, they were part of an agrarian society. Both of them only had one child each. Now, my great-grandfather had two children, but only one survived into adulthood. So they each only had one child apiece. But the husband and wife, and I don't know much about Thomas Browning, but his son Paris Browning, my great-great-grandfather, that I mentioned in an earlier video, he and his wife Mary would work the fields together. They would feed the livestock together. About the only thing that they did not do together is that Paris would do the hunting and he would do the actual physical heavy lifting. But other than that, they had a very shared labor system. These societies also tend to have shared values. In a mechanical society, if the group does not have a set of shared values, the society will tend to destruct. So the next kind of solidarity is organic solidarity, or the organic society. These are the industrial societies. Now, farming societies are rural by nature. Yes, back in the 1960s, um, largely influenced by a temporary move during World War II, there were a lot of folks in urban areas that would turn their backyards into vegetable gardens. But that was an anomaly, not the reality of it. But farming societies tend to be rural because they need large plots of land to grow their produce. Organic societies don't need large plots of land to grow their produce, so they tend to be more urban. And there is a strong heterogeneity, meaning people from different cultures will move into these cities. Now, the next theory we're going to talk about is social disorganization theory. So remember what I'm saying about the organic solidarity, because we're going to start to see a strong influence from Durkheim onto the social disorganization theorists. So remember this for future reference. So there's a mutual interdependence, meaning that in cities, in the rural areas, in organic society, different people might play different roles. So if you go to a farm, and you're going to see that they make their own clothes, they grow their own food, they build their own furniture. Everything they do independently. They might ask a neighbor for help, but not usually. In a city, if I need clothes, I go to a clothing store. If I need soap, I don't make it myself. I go buy it at a store. If I need this product, I go to the store. If I need groceries, I go to the grocery store. So there's a mutual interdependence. So even though these individuals are not as connected through their shared values, there still is a much stronger interdependence. The organic societies do tend to be more progressive rather than traditional in their value systems. And again, there's a complex division of labor. Believe it or not, it was more the industrial society that turned men into the ones who went out of the home to work, and the wife stayed home to take care of the home. Now, in poorer communities, that was not true, but in middle class communities, it was. So there was a complex division of labor. And again, these tend to be very industrial societies. So what Emil Durkheim said, and this is the last slide, Emil Durkheim said that crime serves a function in a fast developing, changing industrial society. So it served a function in this particular society. The fast-paced change is what's causing the crime, and that crime has a way of getting a community together against crime. Now, the social disorganization theorists that we're going to talk about next, they see that, they look at societies very similar to Durkheim, but they have a different explanation as to why it works that way. But basically, Durkheim said that crime serves a function within these fast developing and or changing cultures brought on by the Industrial Revolution. So that's Emil Durkheim. And I think it's very important that we understand that Emil Durkheim was not thinking in terms of how can we progress the human race. He just assumed that the human race is going to progress and saw crime as a symptom of that progression, kind of like a growing pain. It served a function. There was something that it served, but it was kind of like a growing pain in this fast-growing industrial society. So we will see you next video. And I'm real excited for social disorganization theory. The time frame when social disorganization theory was developed is my favorite period of American literature. I think it's my favorite period of American history to study. We're really going to get into social disorganization theory. There are some things about that theory that are almost incontrovertible, or inarguable at least. We can't argue against them. But even then, it's a theory that is just very difficult to study, just like Durkheim's theory. It makes sense. It's intuitive. There's some logical consistency to it, but it's hard to operationalize the variables to truly study it from a scientific perspective. We will see you next video.